Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Happy New Year and welcome to Season 4. We're excited to jump into this year and to some really interesting new topics and some continuations of some of the topics from last year. If you're a regular for the show, you know that weekly we try to take a look at different topics around AI, agentic AI, generative AI, automation, and enterprise AI. Good set of shows from last year. If you haven't checked out the back catalog, there's 45 episodes in Season 3. We're going to shoot for 48 this year. I wouldn't try 52 or so, but anyway. So hopefully we'll come up with some interesting topics. And like I said, I'll share a little bit of that in a few minutes. We already have quite a few guests confirmed, and we're working on scheduling those right now so that we can get those episodes out. Again, exciting and really fun to continue working on this show and to continue taking a look at what is, a hugely disruptive and consequential, development or set of developments in technology. Now, before I jump into some of the topics and we talk a little bit about what's coming soon, I wanted to hit on a few news items that I didn't cover in the end of the year show last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe. And just highlight a few things that I think are interesting and that will definitely have an impact on this year and going forward. So the first of those was an interesting announcement in December about the formation of the Agentic AI Foundation. This is an effort by the Linux Foundation to build a foundation with support from all the major players to really help advance agentic AI and all the developments and integrations around that. So currently, its founding projects were Anthropic's MCP, which should be no surprise, Block Goose, OpenAI's Agents.md, and the platinum members include AWS, Microsoft, Google, Bloomberg, Cloudflare, and probably a few more that I'm forgetting. But this is a major standardization effort. And, we've talked about this repeatedly across the episodes over the last year, that standardization and integration and standardization of integration is going to be extremely important going forward, particularly as more and more companies adopt agentic systems and try to layer that into their infrastructure, their existing enterprise applications, how they deal with data, that sort of thing. And as we all know, data is absolutely critical when you talk about agentic AI, and particularly when you talk about autonomous agentic agents, because of the fact that the data can really have a huge impact. So this type is excited to see, and I think I look forward to seeing what comes out of this. If you think about it, MCP already has hit 97 monthly SDK downloads, which are pretty amazing, and 10,000 plus active servers. So the standardization could accelerate enterprise adoption and really, help remove some of the vendor lock-in concerns that we've seen around this. Now, the next one is an interesting set of numbers that have been kind of developing over the last year, and that's around enterprise agentic AI, and whether this how the progress is going, I should say. And we've seen several reports from Deloitte and McKinsey and research firms like IDC and Gartner. We have some of our own data that we developed last year as well, and there's a big gap that's starting to show up between hype and reality. And probably not a surprise because, let's be honest, there's been a lot of hype. But according to some of this data, particularly the McKinsey data, only 14% of organizations have deployed have deployment ready agentic solutions, and 42% are still kind of working on their strategy. Now, I will say, Our numbers showed somewhat higher than that. We showed nearly half of the respondents in the U.S. we surveyed last year said they were already involved and had in production some agentic AI efforts. Now, those could easily be proof of concept or smaller departmental deployments, but still, and up to 89% of those that reported, having working on a strategy. So that could be, we're just developing the strategy. It could be we're in proof of concept, or, et cetera, through rollout. Um, so that's some of the data that we saw, and some of the other data. Now, Gartner put out numbers last year that predicted, and what predictions. They predicted 40% of the projects would fail by 2027, agentic AI projects, I should say, due to legacy system incompatibility. And that I could actually think back to what I just said about integration and standardization, which we are seeing some good movement around. So hopefully, we'll work through that. But I will throw in this. I always sort of laugh when I see numbers like this, 40% failure, because if you look at the overall project failure rate for IT projects, has been this way for years, is higher than 40%. So, what does this actually mean? I'm not sure. And it definitely means that we need to pay more attention to implementation, and we have to focus when we go through that to really focus around change management, people, systems, integration, all of these things that are really important when you look at agentic systems, autonomous systems. Um, so it really suggests that 2026 will be about, moving from pilots to production, and really starting to deal with more and more of these integration challenges that are going to definitely be limiting factors in some of these enterprise deployments. We also, overall saw really good acceleration in agentic AI across this past year. Um, some of the numbers I saw were, 5.25 billion in 2024, 43, nearly 44% CAGR projected to reach 199 billion by 2034. That may be low. Enterprise spending on generative AI reached 37 billion in 2025. So that was like a threefold increase. And 79% of organizations reported some agentic AI implementation. Now, I told you that our numbers are slightly different than that, but every survey shows different, slightly different numbers, but high and supporting that number for sure. Investment in AI agents, startups. And we've talked about this in our AI Pulse episodes a few times this year. But it tripled to 3.8 billion this past year. So huge investment in agentic AI. The really the impact, I think, for this year is that the influx of capital and adoption momentum, you're going to see a lot of market maturation this year. I think more and more as we get use cases really defined, really tested, really in production, you're going to see more and more companies, that move into adoption, and it's kind of typical for any new technology that we deal with. You see, kind of bleeding edge. You see some, fast followers, some followers, and some of the laggards will start to move probably by the end of this year, early next. Um, we'll see, but definitely shows that there's a lot of momentum coming into this year, which is exciting. Um, Now, the next one is into the infrastructure piece of this. There was an announcement from Stanford about a 3D chip breakthrough in December, and this is still a little sketchy from detail standpoint, but it's very interesting. The researchers there created a 3D chip design that stacks memory and compute vertically instead of horizontally, so it potentially breaks AI's biggest bottleneck, and that's the memory wall. This architecture could really speed up data movement inside the chips, which, as we know, data and data movement are, a key part of agentic AI. If it's commercialized, and we still don't know, what that looks like or if it will be, it could address, one of those key constraints on AI model scaling and inference speed. So definitely something to look for over the next year. Now, there was also an MIT CMU study on AI agents versus human collaboration. Late November, I think it came out. And it's interesting to show that companies are compared really fully autonomous agents to hybrid human AI workflows, and we've talked about this quite a bit in my survey work over the last year, both the AI privacy survey I did for Zoho and the Agentic AI adoption survey that we did as Arion, have shown that that human AI collaborative workflows are actually getting much more traction than the fully autonomous AI agent workflows. Now, it doesn't mean that there's anything necessarily wrong there. It just means that we are moving into this hybrid workforce environment. Well, how long that lasts, what that looks like, I'm not entirely sure, but I do believe that enterprises are really structuring their workflows around this concept of hybrid workforce versus splitting into human led and agent led and separating those. They really are coming together. Collaboration, of course, going to be a big issue there. How do we how do we ensure agent to agent collaboration? How do we ensure agent to human and human to agent collaboration? How do we govern that? How do we monitor that? I wrote something last week that I'm really interested in around memory and how we can adapt to more of a real-time context for agents so that they can in fact learn from decisions and outcomes more effectively. You might want to take a look at that. It's up on the Arion site. But anyway, my point is that this hybrid workflow is definitely what we're seeing more and more of. And if you survey um, customers, for example, about how they're willing to interact with chatbots versus humans in a customer service environment. If you just ask, "Would you rather talk to a bot or a human?" What you're going to see, of course, is human. A large majority, like 90% probably. But if you describe the workflow as hybrid, so you say, the initial triage is done by an agent, by a digital agent. And if the resolution is simplistic, something that can be dealt with very quickly in that first interaction, then the agent takes care of that. But if not, it immediately escalates into a human workflow so that you can get the right level of care and expertise in there that's needed to actually solve the customer's problem, and that actually comes out much higher. The hybrid workflow is much more acceptable to most people, and of course, as the systems get better, it's even harder to tell, when you're with the digital agent versus the human agent. But it is certainly something that people are very sensitive to, and I think for a while we will see going forward this hybrid approach as the leading approach to the implementation. So, with that, I wanted to highlight a few of the topics and the episodes that we have coming. And again, I said we've been working really hard over the holiday period and this week too, to get these scheduled, to get the guests scheduled, to get the preparation done and defined really well so that we can jump right in. We will start recording those next week, and so look forward next week and going forward to some very interesting new topics. And here's some of the things that we already have scheduled, and again, I'm excited about. Um, One is a look when machines create. It's an IP attorney's perspective on AI innovation and IP. Now, you may remember I did one with a publisher, an episode with a publisher earlier. Uh, um, well, I guess I should say near in the fall anyway. That was a very interesting episode that talked about authorship and content creation and IP. And this is going to take more of a legalistic look with an IP attorney that really has given a lot of thought around AI and content and generative AI, that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Um, Another one around ChatGPT and your strategy, why what business leaders get wrong about AI. I mean, obviously we've written quite a bit about that, but having a nice discussion around that, I think, will help us as we move into more and more production deployments to understand what you need to be aware of and certainly use this to to promote the book a little bit too. Obviously, if you're working on building a digital workforce, take a look at the book that we published in September, and then also the readiness assessment that we published in December. You can find those on digitalworkforce.work or on the Arion Research site. Co-creation over replacement. This ties back into the human hybrid, human digital hybrid workforce idea, and this is one of those areas that we're going to dig in a lot this year around vertically focused topics. So this is around real AI strategy for manufacturing. I have several guests that we're working with right now to get more and more of these vertically focused solutions. I think, in the predictions, we talked about this some, and I feel like this is an area that we need to explore a lot more, because a lot of the companies that are looking at this are really molding these efforts into more of an industry-focused scenario workflow-based approach. And so I think that's going to be a very interesting discussion point going forward. And then Agentic AI privacy challenge. I mean, we've done a lot of research around privacy. I have a really good guest that, is going to talk about trust in the age of autonomous systems. Certainly trust is a foundation here as we talk about, security and privacy. So that'll be an interesting one to go through. Then we have, other general topics. We have several guests we're working with on cybersecurity, this idea around persistent memory, agentic adoption, what's working, what's not, some practical, stories from companies that are implementing, that are in production. So, a lot of really interesting topics, and again, looking forward to that. And I will put a plug in here if if you're listening to this and you're an expert in one of these areas that you think would be interesting for us, or you're a PR firm for somebody representing somebody that you think would be a good guest, please reach out. Disambiguation at arionresearch.com. And we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get you scheduled on the show. It is always a challenge feeding a weekly show with really good, high quality guests. So we're always interested in having that conversation. If you have somebody that you think will be good, or if you yourself are interested in, and you think you could add to the conversation, then we definitely like to talk to you. And of course, we're not going to do away with our AI Pulse episodes every month. Tom, my co-host Tom Pringle will continue to join, and we will continue our dialogue around, the news and developments each month, and also, of course, our highlight of our cool new tech gadget every month. If you have some ideas about that, also please submit those, because we're always looking for some cool new tech gadget to highlight. I have a really good one for this month's episode already. So, we're looking forward to this year. This season. And I think that, last season, very successful. We really, had a lot of fun doing the show, and hopefully it was really informative to you. This year, we're going to dig into a lot of the topics that we started to develop last year. Agentic AI, of course, becoming much, much more of a headliner as as more and more companies are investing in and deploying. And then, of course, on the provider side, more and more providers, more and more startups that are, working to help with a lot of the issues that we're finding as we're going into these production systems. So exciting year ahead. I'm really, looking forward to that, and hopefully you are too. Hopefully you'll join us. That's really all I had for today. Again, I just wanted to, give a basic introduction to this season, get it kicked off, and then, look for a new episode next week. And again, I thank you all very much for the support. We've really seen a lot of very strong support for the show. Much appreciated. A lot of participation, a lot of interesting guests, and again, looking forward to that this year. If you aren't a subscriber yet, you should take a look. Subscribe on any of your favorite podcast platforms, or of course, you can watch the show on YouTube if you prefer video. And that's a channel that more and more, I think, people are, in fact, selecting that. So exciting stuff too. But again, I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to having a lot of interesting episodes for this year. And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arionresearch.com.
If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arianresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arian Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.